The Ouija board. This story was actually from my mother when she was younger. She said one time when she was a teenager, she was curious and thinking it would be a fun experience playing with the Ouija board. Her and a group of her friends got together and started asking some questions to the Ouija board. Everything was going great until the planchette started moving on its own without anyone touching it. Slowly, it spelled out, "I will follow you forever." Everyone started screaming and panicking, and without knowing how to close the session out, they just put the board away, and that was a big mistake. As my mother was watching TV with my grandma, she heard a noise from the kitchen, and she decided to check it out. As she walked into the kitchen, a dark shadow-like entity with large, angry eyes then launched at her, causing her to scream in terror. My grandmother, who was right behind her, only saw my mom fall backwards and never saw the entity. She tried to calm her down, suggesting that she might have imagined it, and things went back to normal for a while. Later, my mom went on a trip to Laredo to buy some merchandise to sell during a bus stop. My mother went to the bathroom, and suddenly everything around her darkened, and she heard the bathroom door lock from the outside. Terrified, she started screaming and asked for help, but people who were outside couldn't open the door. She felt dozens and dozens of roaches crawling all over her feet. She began to scream louder than ever. But minutes later, the lights turned on, and someone opened the door, and everything went back to normal, just like if it was a nightmare. These strange incidences began happening more frequently, and the angry-looking entity kept bothering her, apparently unexpectedly. Eventually, my mother started dating a man who would eventually become my father. He knew a lot about these entities and also about being a Freemason. He helped my mother do a lot of these experiences and helped her overcome most of them. But sadly, he passed away in 2020. After he passed away, the paranormal experiences returned to my mom's life, knowing that her protector was now gone. The new car. This actually happened to my cousin, and this happened when I was about 17 years old. At the time, I was really close to my cousin, who was a year younger than me. We got along great, almost like brothers. Being an only child, my parents always encouraged me to connect with family, so I wouldn't feel lonely. My cousin and I became very close. Because of this, we often went to parties at our friends' houses. We pretty much were healthy kids, maybe having a couple of drinks to feel grown up, but it wasn't a habit. One day, my cousin got called to go to a friend's house. He asked me to get permission from my parents so that we could spend the night there, which I did. When I got to our friend's house, everything was normal, like always. We played board games, video games, and talked about stuff 17-year-old kids usually talk about. Everything was going great. But that was until the friend who owned the house that we were spending the night at suggested we play with the Ouija board. He mentioned he bought one at a garage sale and wanted to see if it really worked. Since we had never played with one before, everyone at the party agreed, and they started playing with the planchette. The planchette moved, and my cousin was skeptical, saying the players were moving it, and he didn't believe it. The owner of the board asked him to play along, just touching the planchette lightly without moving it. Skeptical, my cousin did that, and our friend told him to start asking questions. My cousin asked if anyone was there, and the planchette quickly moved to yes. making us all laugh a bit nervously. Then my cousin asked what the entity's name was, and the planchette spelled out Pazuzu. None of us knew what that meant, but the board's owner warned my cousin, be careful. I've heard of this entity. If it's really Pazuzu, it can guess anything and grant anything. To which my cousin half-jokingly said, oh really? Okay, can you give me a new car? The planchette moved to yes. Our friend quickly said, don't do it. It will ask for something in return. My cousin asked, and what could it ask for? Our friend replied, I don't know, but don't do it. We were thinking this was just a joke. And with everyone watching, my cousin said, give me a new car. What do you want in exchange? The planchette didn't move. Tell me what you need. What do you want from me? My cousin said again, I want a new car. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the scariest thing happened. Our friend, who was conducting the session, looked creepy and stared right at my cousin and said, I want your parents to divorce. What? My cousin asked. The guy once again said in a possessed voice, you want a new car? I want your parents to divorce, but if you don't do it, I will. Then our friend looked down again. My cousin asked, why did you say that? But our friend seemed not to remember saying anything at all. Everyone in the room was silent and confused about what happened, and that's when my cousin said he didn't want to play anymore. So they closed the session with the Ouija board, and we decided to head back to his house. He still thought the whole thing was a prank by our friend. Time eventually passed, and for some context, his family was doing great. My aunt and uncle and two cousins, the one a year younger than me and his little brother, just a kid, lived together without anything happening for a while. My cousin finally turned 17, and his parents threw a huge party at home. He didn't really want to say he was grown up, and he wanted to celebrate it with his friends, but his parents convinced him to have some cake and spend a little time together before going out with his friends, and my cousin agreed. They celebrated, they cut the cake, and everything was perfect. Then my uncle said, don't use my car anymore. You're still too young. But your mom and I got you a gift. Look out the window, son. And there it was, a brand new car. My cousin was grateful to his parents for the gift, but started remembering the Ouija board incident. When it said, you want a new car? I want your parents to divorce. But if you don't do it, I will. Then he began to worry. He might actually have to break up his parents' marriage. But in the end, he thought it was just a coincidence. Later on, my uncle asked my cousin to go to the supermarket. My cousin agreed, and as he was leaving, his little brother asked if he could come along with him. My cousin agreed. After all, he had just gotten a new car. They both hopped into the car, but right before reaching the supermarket, they had a severe accident, and only my older cousin survived. My aunt and uncle couldn't handle losing their youngest son and ended up getting divorced. Everything went south from there, and his family was destroyed after this. I have never dared to play with the Ouija board again, and I'll never do it. I don't know if it was a weird coincidence, but I'll never be tempted to play with one again. Thank you for listening to my story. True Paranormal Story number 2. True Ouija board story. In 1997, I was 13 at the time. And at that age, when most of us like to investigate, with curiosity in the world around us. It's no longer just having sleepovers with friends, playing various video games, or getting into high school sports. Girls were starting to become appealing. This was a time when professional wrestling was just starting to really take off, and a group of my friends were diving into horror movies and scary stories. This is something that's always appealed to me ever since reading scary stories to tell in the dark. I was hooked when this series came out. I was about 8 years old. They sold them at our scholastic book fair. Looking back, these stories and illustrations were way too intense for 8-year-olds, in my opinion. But I really did enjoy them. We all loved to be scared. My friend Philly and I enjoyed getting together to watch horror movies and scare each other with urban legends. We started doing this almost all the time, especially during the summer when school was out. Of course, this was pre-internet time, so all we had media-wise was actually renting a movie or physically going to the theater. After renting the same movies over and over, we often just focused on urban legends that we now call creepypastas today. We might find some books at the library that had them, or we just made up our own, but we really wanted to feel some actual terror. I wish we could have just stuck with our stupid scary stories. So when me and my friend Philly were at his house alone, we went to his sister's room and we had the idea to pull out a Ouija board from under her bed. Again, we made sure that no one was home when we pulled it out. The board was really glossy and it looked new, as if nobody ever played with it. So we did 2 sessions with this device, but this was enough to keep me away for 22 years after doing it. The first session was incident-free. We asked a few silly questions, me and my friend Philly, like what our future held, if we will get married and have kids, stuff like that. Even though I never played this before, I still knew not to ask certain questions, like what was the name of the person we were talking to. Maybe we figured that out from all the hours spent watching scary movies. It was a second session when things got weird. Philly and I were going back and forth with the board, asking simple questions about our lives. I remember asking where I would live as an adult, and the board said Seattle. I was living 20 miles away from Seattle at the time. This is when I felt the aura of the board shift and the air, because static was brewing all around us. I could tell you that everything that was going on was real, and neither one of us was moving the oracle. My hands weren't even on it at some points. But back to the Seattle question. Around this time, I was researching the city of Seattle because one of my favorite baseball players, Ken Griffey Jr., played for the Seattle Mariners, and that was my favorite team at the time. The next couple of questions is a blur to me, and all I remember is the oracle going mostly to the word no when we asked a question, even if it wasn't a yes or no question that was required. Then I asked the last question that I would ever ask the Ouija. I asked, would the Detroit Tigers ever win another World Series? The oracle moved so fast to goodbye. I looked at my friend Philly, and his eyes were bulging out and his mouth was wide open. I had the same expression on my face. We knew that once the board said goodbye, you're supposed to put it away immediately. We threw the board into its box, took it back to his sister's room as fast as we could. My friend Philly chucked it under the bed like nothing happened. After a while, me and Philly started letting out tiny little laughs, lighting up into big belly laughs as we hit the floor rolling. We were laughing out the nervousness that we felt during the game. We were making fun of ourselves, of how dumb and scared we looked while we were playing the Ouija board game. My friend Philly lived in the country area across the street from a cemetery, and there weren't many houses around, and it was about a 15-minute hike just to walk to the neighbor's house. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, we finally got tired from playing video games. That's when we decided to step outside, and we looked at the graveyard that was across the street from his house and began talking about how calm the night was. And I remember there wasn't any wind at all. Then behind us we heard movement, and my friend Philly's bushes started shaking. We started hearing growling, and it definitely didn't sound like a dog. It sounded much larger than a regular animal, and it was coming from the bushes around his house. To this day, I don't know what it was, and I don't care to know what it could have been. We knew something wasn't right, and we both headed straight for his house. Even now, writing this down, I can feel an eerie presence. We both knew somehow this was related to the board. Philly, my friend, suggested that we call it a night and try to get some sleep, but to tell you the truth, I wish that was the end of the story. Just a few short hours later, we woke up to the sound of knocking. Sounds that I couldn't determine where they were coming from, but it sounded like it was outside the house. We both went downstairs and looked out the front door. I slowly peeked outside. I saw something that made my heart drop into my stomach. A man was standing right outside the door. He didn't move. He just stood there. We once again fled to his room and slammed the door shut. We didn't call the police or tell his mom. We just sat in the room, not sure what to do. After a few minutes, we went by the front door again, just to see if the man was still there. And to my surprise, he was gone. The next day, after I had gone home, I had got a phone call from my friend Philly, and he said he had a dream that we were playing the board, and a hand came up from the center and reached for his head. He said he tried to push it away himself, but he was moving in slow motion, like when you're trying to run away in a nightmare. He said the hand grabbed a fistful of his hair. Philly said he tried to scream, but nothing came out. The hand was forcing his head into the board. He then woke up, gasping for air, and felt pain on the top of his head, where the thing had grabbed him. I didn't want to admit this to him, but the scary truth was, I had the same nightmare. Me and Philly decided to meet up in person that night, and when I made it to his house, he told me to go to the backyard. And there he had the board. He told me his plan was to light the board on fire. After dousing it with gasoline, it finally erupted into flames and quickly burned into ashes. After that, as far as I can remember, nothing has happened, and we never spoke about this again. I have never touched or looked at a board again. Hi there, and welcome to Zelda's Horror. I will post paranormal true stories every week. Again, all stories are 100% true and are chosen as the scariest and most terrifying stories I have come across. Most stories are of my own experiences and are not fake or made up. I've also made my videos with a rainy background so as to help you fall asleep. Please enjoy these 5 true Wendigo and paranormal stories in the rain, number 12. Okay, now let's begin. True story. Number 1, The Wendigos. Told by James F. While driving down the road in the state of Arizona, Me and my friend were on a business trip, and we were on a road with lots of land on one side of the road. As we were driving, we noticed something running straight across the road. It was running on all fours, and it was pitch black. I slammed on the brakes, and after it ran across the road, it stopped and turned around and looked right at us. It had a white face with human traits. It then turned back around and started running off into the woods. After we took off from that spot, we questioned what we saw and talked about it the rest of the way to our destination. After finishing up what we had to do, we headed back home. I dreaded going back through the same area because of what we saw. On the way back, my coworker friend was driving and I was in the passenger seat, asleep. Just then, my friend slammed on the brakes. I literally got jerked forward. Then, he slammed on the gas pedal and we took off, going extremely fast. I asked him what happened and he said he'll tell me once we get home. That it was nothing at all. I was very confused, but I went back to sleep. As soon as we got to my house, he asked to come inside. He came in and I asked him what really happened on the road. He said he didn't want to tell me because he knew I would have freaked out. He said as he was driving down the long stretch of road, he saw 5 people running on all fours chasing the car, coming out of the wooded area by the road. He said he slammed on the brakes to get a closer look at them, but he saw that they were not human. He said that's when he slammed on the gas pedal and took off. I was terrified when he told me this. It was really hard trying to fall asleep that night, but surprisingly, I did. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by a tapping and scratching at my bedroom window. I lived alone at that time, so it was truly terrifying knowing something was outside my window, and I was completely alone. I got my phone light on and slowly started walking towards my window. I slowly opened the curtain, and I saw the same black creature that was crawling on all fours with a white face. It had its face pressed up against my window. I ran back to bed, and that's when it started banging on the window. I called a friend over, who looked around my house and couldn't find anything. We did find scratch marks on my windowsill. This story is true, and if no one believes me, it's completely fine. I don't expect anyone to believe me, as long as I know I'm a witness to the paranormal, and I'm telling the truth. It's something I'll never forget. True paranormal story number 2, The Troll. 2 incidents happened in this true story. My mother Amelia was sleeping in her bedroom alone one morning, and she woke up with a girl standing in front of a mirror in her room. My mother said she can only see her back. She said she was brushing her hair slowly. My mother thought it was my daughter because at the time we were living with her. She said the girl didn't do anything. She just kept brushing her hair very slowly. Now my mother was confused because no one was allowed in my mother's room, especially when she was asleep. My mother asked her, "What are you doing?" The girl didn't answer. As soon as my mother raised her voice again and asked, "What are you doing in my room?" the girl slowly put the brush down and walked very slowly out of the room. This was the first paranormal occurrence. The second one was much, much worse. Again, in the early morning, about 2 weeks after that incident, my mother was awakened by someone laughing and giggling. She opened her eyes, and what she saw terrified her to the core. She was paralyzed from fear. There was a small girl with a troll-like face, laughing and dancing in front of her bed. The troll had a grin on its face, long black hair with huge eyes. My mother was so scared, yet she said a prayer out loud several times and said, "I'm not afraid." She closed her eyes, then opened them again. The troll-like girl was gone, vanished. These two stories my mother told me are very true and did indeed happen. I wanted to know more, but that's all she told me happened. Be careful that nothing is standing in front of your bed as you listen to these true stories. True paranormal story number 3, the Skinwalker. Me and my friends John and Adam went camping. As we were laying down, we heard something in the trees making noise. We waited about an hour or so, and the noises stopped. We wondered what it could be. I finished my last beer, and so did John. John said he needed to go use the restroom, so he got up and walked into the woods. He took a while, but after about 30 minutes or so, we figured something was wrong. We went looking for him. We kept calling out his name. I didn't know if he was playing a prank or what, so I got pretty upset and started yelling out angrily for him to come out and stop playing. We then got really concerned, but just then we looked down and found drops of blood. We started following the trail of blood drops, and we found him. He was facing the other way with his back faced towards us. He was standing up. He was covered in blood. We shouted his name, but he did not respond. I was gonna shout his name again until he actually turned towards us. We were in shock. His face was full of blood. We looked at him closer, and he had red eyes. His face didn't even quite look the same. I knew it wasn't him. He looked at us and said, "What's up, guys? Let's go for a walk," in his regular voice. Me and Adam turned around and ran away past our campsite. We ran right into my car. It was about half a mile from our tent. We were dripping sweat. I didn't know if it was chasing us. I could have sworn I heard thumping sounds right behind us as we were running away. I made it home, and when we got out of the car, I looked at the car and saw long scratch marks on the back of the car and on the bumper. This was more than 40 years ago. I also noticed one time that I saw John at a bar. It looked just like him. I didn't know what to think of it. This was a long time ago. I recently Googled it, and now I know it could have been a Skinwalker. Adam, my best friend, never recovered from this incident. Paranormal true story number 4, the Doppelganger. Again, for most people that do not know, I lived in a haunted house for more than 8 years. During this time, one of the most horrifying things occurred. My wife said she was leaving to get something to eat and went upstairs to call my daughter to come downstairs and put her shoes on so she could go with her. She went to the bathroom upstairs and then passed my daughter's room again. She noticed my daughter was still on her bed playing with her dolls. She told her to get downstairs and noticed that my daughter did not acknowledge her at all. So she raised her voice and told her to go downstairs, that she'll be waiting for her. So she went downstairs, but my daughter was already there, standing by the door downstairs with her shoes on. She said, "Mommy, who were you talking to upstairs?" My wife got chills all over her body. She slowly walked up the stairs and peeked through the stairwells at my daughter's room and saw my daughter on her bed. What made her so terrified was that the girl on the bed not only was not my daughter, but she was staring directly at my wife with a straight face, showing no emotion. My wife then said she ran down the stairs and straight to the car with my real daughter in her arms and got in the car and took off. They didn't want to come back home till later when I got home from work.